welcome back to my studio. This is Emma. Another week has gone past. Can you believe how fast the time is going at the moment? I'm hoping it's going to speed up a little bit, I have to say, because it is winter still, and I am getting to the point, don't you find, sort of around about February time, you're sort of beginning to think, I think I've done winter now, I think I've had enough of rain and hail and sleet and whatever else has been going on. So I hope you've all been safe with the storms that we've had. It has been pretty epic. We've just had a lot of rain really, and luckily everything's stayed, all the roofs have stayed on. We're very, very lucky, but I think a lot of people have had some devastating experiences. So never mind, here we are in a peaceful corner of Cumbria. So this week I'm going to show you how we've got on with turning these lovely fabrics into my samples. I'm not going to show you it now because that will spoil it. And I've had an adventure with it really. It's been quite fun and exciting. What I am doing is, you'll see I've got a big piece here. This is much bigger than the samples where they were just like that size. And I've actually started making my real piece. And it's been so good because I knew what to do. I just kind of went straight into it. I've still had to fiddle around with the colours because obviously scaling it up has its own challenges as well. You know, you make a little sample and then you've got to actually be brave and make it big. So I had to be bold and do that. And that took me a morning to do that, just to work out what colour was going where and what size you know, strip to put on. So that's been good. So I've embellished that down and I will be getting on with that this week. I probably won't show you the progress of that one because it'll be very similar to what I've just shown you over the last 4 weeks. And I think that, you know, I think that's a bit dull really to watch, but I will show you it when I've finished it. It also means that I can concentrate on sewing it and getting it right, because it's going to be a little bit challenging, partly because I'm scaling it up, partly because of the shape that I want to do with it. So I will show you that when I finish. Because sometimes I'm quite happy to film. I love showing what I'm doing. It's great, and I'm sharing. And if it's inspiring anybody, that's, you know, that's fantastic. So thank you so much for your comments. I have to say, comments are brilliant, and there's some really good ideas come out of them. I think it's fascinating. I almost kind of want to save all the comments up and publish them somewhere, because there's some really cool things that people are saying. And you know, if I can help you in any way as well, that's great too. Thank you for being here. You know, this makes it what it is. This makes my YouTube. The fact that you are there and showing up and saying hello to me is great. So what I was going to say, it was quite funny last week. I realised afterwards that I filmed wearing just my brown jumper, and look, you can see I've got these little patches. And what it is my poor jumper is so old now. It's kind of full of holes. And my wabi-sabi philosophy of life these days is that I repair things so much more than I ever did. In the past, I probably would have just gone out and bought a new one, and now I'm just going, well, actually, I'm going to darn this. And it's a very pleasurable thing, I think, isn't it, to sit and do a bit of hand sewing. So, but I did choose to do it in really bright colours, so it's orange, because I thought, well, if you're going to darn it, why not make it really visible, and then, you know, people can see it and see that you've darned your clothes, and that's okay to do. You know, to reuse things. And I think this is what my work is very much about, reusing things that perhaps were discarded and sent to the charity shops. And some of these fabrics I've had for years. Some of them have been in my boxes for, you know, I've been slowly cutting away at them down the years. And so I'm quite sad sometimes when I run out of a particular fabric. But it is an excuse to go and buy another one, possibly. And I've been very good. I haven't been to buy any lately. I was very tempted to go and get some new bits for this, but I'm just waiting to see what the next piece is going to, you know, be colour-wise. This is definitely the colour for this piece, but I don't know what the next piece is going to be until I start. And I think that's just it. You know, when in doubt, just get your fabrics out and then just start and see what comes. So anyway, enough of that. I will now get on and show you what happened with the stitching. Okay, so decision time. So I read all the comments, and something inside me was saying, no, don't cut it into 4. I don't know what it was. And then I had a lovely comment saying, why don't you cut it up the middle? So I folded it a little bit, and now we're just going to chop it up the middle like this. Oh, isn't that shocking? Look at that. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, what that automatically does to that. I rather like it. I like the way it's kind of separated it out. And you could actually keep that as a whole piece, if you see what I mean. You could be adding seed heads to both bits and neatening it up and actually having that as a pair. I rather like the way it splits that. So that was a really good suggestion, and I think that's made me very happy to do that. And now it gives me 2 samples to work on to see what kind of seed heads or decoration I'm going to put on next. Seed heads, oh, there's a bit of a giveaway. So let's just put that to one side. And what I've got here, oops, is a piece of, this is tracing paper. Like these days I treat myself to proper tracing paper. Greaseproof paper will work just as well. So I think what I'm going to do is, do I need it completely that size? I'm just going to cut that in, tear that in half actually, because I don't need the, because I'm stingy with me tracing paper. So I'm just going to draw on here. I'm not quite sure how many I will get on, but I'll just give it a go. We'll just put something very simple in the way of a seed head on here. It actually isn't quite as wide as that, so it might be that you would only get a couple on there. So let's just do another one. I love drawing seed heads, and we'll perhaps put a little one down there. And you can make them any shape, any size. You know, they're your seed heads. Just make them a bit of fun. Nothing has to be perfect. There we go. So it's quite a useful way, using a piece of tracing paper, just to give you a rough idea of whereabouts you might put things. So I think they would need to be really tall on there and have them coming up into this pale bit up here. So the other thing I wanted to experiment with, got my second piece of paper here, is I just want to do as though it's just some grasses. Just some simple grasses coming up like this. And they might, let's just have a little look at that. I mean, that couldn't be easier to draw, could it? Yes, because I did think about putting little seeds. I had drawn some earlier. Here's some I did earlier, and I'd drawn them with little knobbles on the top. But actually, I think I just want this feeling of grass coming up here like that. And that would be definitely something I would do down in this area here. So, there we go. 2 designs out of 1 piece of making. And obviously it could have been 4. You know, you could have been perhaps doing it like this, and those could be going there like that. Or you could be having the dark version, which is really quite nice when you separate it out like that and you can just see the dark. Again, you could have light coloured ones going onto there. So you see, sampling is very, very useful, and listening to other people's suggestions is very helpful. Thank you so much for that. And I think now the thing to do is to get some threads and just see how I'm going to do these 2 designs and get this thing moving so I can see what's what. Okay, so now it's choosing time again. I'm trying to work out what sort of colour thread or fabric I can use, which is going to let me do seed heads going all the way up here from this dark area to this light area. Just trying to get something which is going to stand out in both places and be seen. I'm feeling quite frosty. I have to say, this is quite a frosty, it's meant to be frosty sort of landscape, this kind of, in terms of, I'm thinking winter here. So I've been trying out different things and seeing what might or might not work. I've got all sorts of things in my little scrap box. I keep a little basket full of samples and bits and bobs. I never throw anything away, as most of you will know who've been watching me for a while, because it's awfully useful when you just don't quite know what to do. You can just go and fiddle around with these little bits and go, well, you know, would that work with that bit? That might work down there but not up there. So eventually, after ratcheting in various bags of fabrics, I found this rather nice little bit of lilac. Very pretty, and I thought, well, perhaps we will cut that into a little seed head sort of shape, and then that can have big stitching going over it. And then I had cut this little piece of ribbon, but I don't like that. I think that's too harsh. It's too bright and shiny. But then I also found this, which is some very funny old fabric. I'm not sure where that came from. It's in my stash. So I threw nothing away, because you never know, it might just come in handy. So I've cut a little thin strip of that, and I'm thinking, well, actually, that's quite soft. and it brings the eye up, and if I do silver stitching on here with in a suitable fashion, I think that might work. So I'm going to experiment with that next. Actually, the other thing I'm doing is cutting out a seed head from a lilac coloured piece of jumper welt, and I just thought I'm going to make this a proper sample, and I'm just going to try that as well and see if I like it. And I'll do different ways of doing the stalks and we'll see what happens. That's then a proper sample, you see. I'm not just making it into a picture and sneaking it in as a finished piece. It's going to be my sample. Right, so actually a bit of excitement here at the design studio. I just suddenly fancied a little piece of lace to try, and I thought what I would do is just have it as a plain, just as a trial to see what it would do. Now, as you can see, it does nothing there, but if I put it on top of there, that suddenly has some potential. I'm not sure I actually like it, but it's got some potential. And I like it on the jumper because it's actually lifting it up from the surface a bit as well. But then I also, whilst I was ratcheting in my boxes for that lace, I also found this stuff, which is the edging. You can see that's beautiful. It's the edging from a shawl or something that I've had in, and it's got the most beautiful lace. So I've cut that into a little shape for a seed head, and when I put that on there, I suddenly go, ooh, yes, I like that very much. And if I put it on there again, it's giving it a lovely seed heady sort of lacy feeling, as though it's frosty. It's kind of giving me what I was sort of looking for, really. And the other thing I've got here is a grey version of that, which again could look quite nice. If I just chop a little bit of that off there. Ooh, this has suddenly got me excited. You know, when something is actually working and making you feel excited, then that's can only be good. So that's kind of made me go, ooh. Whereas that was nice, it was polite, it was okay, it was fine, nothing wrong with it, and perhaps when I stitched it on it would be just terrific. But actually, I've gone that extra mile, I've taken that little risk, and I'm suddenly going, oh my goodness, I really like it. It gives an energy to it that it didn't have before. I mean, you might think, oh, that's terrible, that's awful, I hate it. But you see, it's what my eye is seeing, and what I'm feeling inside of me is excitement. So, because I know where this is going, you see, I've got a bigger plan in mind, kind of, that this sample is taking me towards. So that's actually just, yeah, that's given me a bit of va-va-voom. So I'm going to try and stitch those down, and then I'll assess it again, and then I'll move on to the other piece. Goodness me. Oh, I better go and have a lie down. That's too much excitement. Okay, so I think we'll pin things on and get things ready for stitching, but I'm going to take those bits off because I think they will move and shift and be challenging to stitch if I try and stitch it all in one go. So I'm going to stitch on the background bits first, these little heady bits, and actually I'll do the stalks first, and then I'll do these bits at the top. So stalks first, and then I can put the seed head shapy bits on top of the stalks. That makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to me anyway at some level. So we'll just pin those on. There we go. I'll have that in roughly the right place. There we go. Right, and then we'll get those stitched down. It's a little bit fiddly, but I'm just doing a simple straight stitch down here. Hold it in place. And the same for this bit here.
ba da ba